Hello. So, thanks Peter for the intro and for the invite. My name is Sami. I've done design since like the late 90s. Started with doing web stuff all by myself and then proceeded into doing interaction design. And I did a stint at Nokia design on Nokia's heyday when it was like, it was pretty great and feel a bit of hardware there already. So that's like 8 years ago. And the talk I'm doing now is basically it's a bit of warning. It's a complete rewrite. There's all kinds of funky stuff. I thought I wouldn't go too serious on you on early Saturday morning. So let's see how that goes. So as Peter kindly mentioned, we are hosting Interaction16, the IXDA's Global Interaction Conference, Helsinki, next March, early March 1st until March 4th. And you are all welcome there. There's a website out, interaction16.ixda.org. It's got a really, really nice intro video there, and go check it out there. And yeah, what I do for work is design. So Nordkapp designs business products and services people love to use. So we try to keep the business and creativity in a really nice balance. So do things that are useful, that actually have a place in people's life, but still they're just not just novelty value, but they actually product that people use and they actually start using more and more in their daily lives. It's mostly about two things. So there's the usual consulting design services, and then there's product development. So this talk is a bit about both. It's about changing role of consultancies, and then how to actually, kind of a couple of thoughts on how to combine product development in a consulting environment, which kind of like, it's a bit like herding cats, but it can be done. We've done things like a lot of finance stuff, iOS apps. We've done a lot of data visualization, information design kind of stuff. We even fill with a lot of like urban informatics and whatnot. This is a piece of called Urban Flow Helsinki we did a few years ago. I kind of tried to reimagine what does interaction design, what do screens mean in the city. And I'm going to rework this probably in London for Transport of London next fall. So there's going to be a workshop about that as well. And lately, we've been finding ourselves doing all kinds of like weird gonzo stuff. So things like automotive, which kind of like, when you're trying to figure out what's going on, it's like you can't build the car yourself. You can't have the production car out of the shop, not even Tesla, because they look old. And car industries are very complex things, so you have to build things yourself. You have to kind of like try to find the empathy for the things you do from just like scraping up stuff, basically. This is a 10-euro steering wheel, a micro surface, which has no use other than that, and a screen and a chair. And it actually works super well on designing things like automotive UI, for example. We work with a lot of corporations, startups, more and more all over Europe. We won a couple of prizes, but that's the most of sales pitch I'm going to do today. Let's get to the topic. So, first, business of design, then the convergence of the agency studios, what's going to happen, and finally, kind of like a bit of a couple of ideas. What does this mean? What opportunities are there? How designers, developers should approach the market of doing things. But let's start with Black Sabbath. The consultancy business pretty much is changing. Like, if you look at like what's happening in advertising, if you look at what happens in marketing, communication, same happens with design as well. So a lot of the big players, either they're actually doing really well or they're completely fucked. And that's interesting thing because at the same time, design kind of like has finally earned a spot in the boardroom. And there's kind of like, there's so much need for design everywhere, but still there's kind of like asymmetry in the model of what people offer and what companies, clients actually buy. But if you look at the market right now, there's literally no major products without good design. And it's harder and harder to actually get into the market without design. On the Introduction 15 in San Francisco a couple of months ago, there's really interesting discussion with Tim Brown of IDEO and Alan Chodson of Consultancy. And they talked about this subject as well. And Tim had a really, kind of like really optimistic view of things. So his point was that there's actually more and more opportunities for designers, for design. But the problem is that they are in places, in corporations, in structures that never had design before. So they don't know how to buy. They don't even know that they need design. So he said that the only thing he's worried about that there's not enough designers to actually do the jobs we can't imagine yet, which is really interesting way to phrase that. Short-term result, like I said, there's like asymmetry on supply and demand, which means that there's like design firms left and right selling to corporations for different reasons. 300 lakhs, they shut down shop and went to work for Facebook. And it's easy to see why, because you actually get to have a really big impact inside the corporation. But that's like, if you run a company for yourself, that's like everyone has their own individual reasons. So I'm not going to start blaming anyone on selling out or whatever, but there's like this natural progress what's going on. Now people are freaking out about that a bit too much, I think. So Alan Watts, the kind of the British-born philosopher who introduced Zen Buddhism to Western world pretty much a couple of decades ago, he had this really nice quote about change. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. So actually embrace the change. And I mean, if you look at it, building products is now easier than ever. And if you look at the pace of change, what's going on, there's the first movable type in China 1,000 years ago. The Gutenberg printing press, 600-700 years ago. And then it took like hundreds of years until we got into the first industrial revolution, which brought like things like energy, coal for energy, railroad, telegraph for time, and kind of like started syncing the world. So kind of like pre-internet already. Henry Ford started the kind of second industrial revolution, started the kind of mass production and the factories, and which kind of like amplified the previous revolution like 70, 80 years ago. And suddenly we're here. So people like Jeremy Rifkin are talking about the third or fourth industrial revolution. Moore's law is basically destroying economies. It's basically a bit of a self-enabling prophecy, really. It's making just things disappear. This is a great Tumblr, by the way, Business Town. It's a guy kind of like doing Richard Scarry type of reinterpretation of Silicon Valley. And definitely should go look at it. It's on Instagram, Business Town as well. But if you think about this, what has happened in the last 10 years or so, there's so many things have changed. So how many of you were in design, let's say, 10 years ago? It's a few people, quite a few. Good, so you probably started just like I did, so building stuff like coding websites, kind of like doing one-man, one-woman projects for clients. And it was like, that was the way to do. There was big advertising agencies doing websites, but they built the same stuff that you did, all by yourself. Then became the CMSs, kind of like in-house products, which were like dime a dozen. Did the same thing. Then became WordPress, which kind of like took away the CMS business completely, and made it free. And now there's things like Grid.io, which kind of like their promise is that they promise to free the creativity or designer. Everyone can be creative director, and the system does things by themselves. And that's kind of like, that's how the way things go. And you have to tag along, try to understand, like, try to work with that. And it's not just web. So products in general, there's like huge progress, and there's like so many tiny computers around us. They get color screens, they actually get really nicely well-done typography and things like that. So our environment is actually kind of like, it's getting, slowly but surely, it's getting more designed and better designed. And the devices on ourselves, on our body, do the same. So kind of like suddenly the world around us looks a lot less like a computer, but it's kind of, we are in kind of like in the middle of something, which we can't rephrase yet. So Scott talked about Things class and all stuff like that. So that's kind of like, that's where we are. That on the left, by the way, is the first Apple computer as well, which has impressively miniaturized during the years. And I mentioned car industries having this kind of systemic problem with change. If you look at what Volvo's doing, they are actually getting there. And the car screens are not just like glowing rectangles anymore, but they're actually really nicely designed. And if we think about like plus the 3 to 5 years, the electric car, the Tesla 3.0, first self-driving cars, what Mercedes is prototyping right now, they kind of like, they make the computer part of driving disappear. And there's two sides of this coin. So basically, whatever you know now will be obsolete. That's a fact. And you have to keep up your curiosity. You have to keep learning new things throughout life. That's just the way it goes. But the silver lining is that making things to reach millions of people has never been easier. So there has never been a time with so many frameworks, tools, or whatever out there. This is an example of IDEO's Humans and the Design Kit, which they've started giving out for free a few years ago, with the aim of actually empowering developing countries to design better solutions for their purposes. And the change has been puzzling. We are very excited about this, but we still, especially if we look at connected products, we are there. This is very early, very, very early, and we are just getting started. The downside of that excitement is that there's so many products looking for, kind of like, there's so many products that actually are questions looking for, answers looking for questions. So again, sunsetting IoT, that's a real problem. There's so many colored wristbands right now that measure my steps and are completely obsolete. This is a nice, I actually changed the slide image here on the last minute. This is a blog from Tobias Revel. I caught this from the Twitter feed during Scott's talk. It's actually super nice. And Internet of 404s. So, well, where do the products go die, basically? This happens after you lose the charging cable, right? So, it happened to me with, I don't know, 3, 4 wristbands, Pebble. It's like, once you lose the customized cable, only one you get, then your thing is dead. So, I had the privilege of seeing Luisa Henrik talk yesterday in Finland. She mentioned this idea about what if instead of learning to code, we'd learn to think? Because thinking is so much more difficult than coding. Coding is just like, it's a novelty. You can learn that any time. And there's going to be new things, new frameworks to learn. So if we want connected products, IoT, to become mainstream, we have to really try harder. We have to move towards the consumer. And kind of like get into this uncanny valley of realness, which seems to be a problem at the moment. Here's a figurative example. So hardware products and frameworks are nearly there. They're awesome for prototyping. They're awesome for like inventing, figuring out stuff. But it's still very kind of tech-driven. And when we move past the kind of novelty phase into real products for real people, I don't know, the aging people, kids. You're not going to stick an Arduino board to a 5-year-old child, see how it goes. It'll get demolished to pieces in 3 seconds. So you have to figure out something else. The final leap for actually doing things like this between the kind of idea and the mass production is getting there, but it's not there yet. And don't talk about me handing a smartphone to the child. That's going to break. So I'm really happy to see things like Little Bits popping up. So Little Bits to me is a bit like the Adobe PageMill, the Macromedia Dreamweaver of IoT. The first steps of actually building things easily, intuitively, and enabling building stuff for people who are not technical. And are kind of inventing things for themselves for fun and for learning. And because consumer hardware is still really, really hard. This is we have to, I don't want to pour anything on the floor, but we should pour one out the Berg and the brilliant stuff they've done. This is from their CloudWash design fiction piece concept work, I think 2 years ago, which they built a washing machine which has dedicated buttons for kind of like notifying for finished wash, getting the detergent, etc., etc. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, there's Amazon Dash. So the cool thing is that designers, we are really, really good at forcing things that will happen in the near future. Because like somebody said that you can pretty much foresee anything that's going to happen in the next 10 years by looking at the academic research right now. The problem is that you just have to pick up the right pieces from there, which are going to work and which are going to not. And that's what design is really good at. Kind of figure out what actually makes sense for the people, for the consumers, and the business as well. So, the convergence of what we as designers do, we as designers drink. Sorry about that. There's been so many companies. Like Cuban Council sold to Google ages ago. Smart Design closed a couple of their shops, especially in Silicon Valley. TNLAX, Hot Studio, Adaptive Path, 8020, and so forth. Then so much more kind of like small local examples. They kind of like just decided to either sell big to a large corporation and do their thing, or just like close shop. And the thing is like, this means that the mediocrity is out of the window. You have to be either huge in size or brilliant in what you do. And it's kind of like either or. You can be pretty good in big size as well, but the size is not a kind of like, size brings the money, let's put it that way. But talent is infinite. And the webmaster is dead, replaced by Amazon S3 script. And this kind of like, this clip from Maximum Overdrive, it's kind of like, funnily enough, echoes the Silicon Valley's thinking of what the internet is going to do. If you haven't seen this movie, go see it. It's about a space dust.
Come on over here, sugar buns. This machine just called me an asshole.
It's about a space dust that kind of like gets the Earth from a comet and turns all the machines, living things. You know, obviously they're evil because it's written by Stephen King. So it's a funny little movie. And I kind of like this is the general reaction. Well, the blogosphere seems to have at the moment. Like, we're fucked. We're gonna die. Well, nah, we're gonna be okay. Jaron Lanier put out a book called Who Owns the Future, which actually talks about this stuff a lot. And so anything that can be software will be, and anything that can be automated will be, and anything that can be a service will be. There's all kinds of weird kind of visions about flying nanobots in medical care at the moment, which may or may not happen, but it's all implications which has to be designed. It's all too easy to forget free inevitability means that someone else will be deciding how you live. So this is kind of like the Silicon Valley business model, right? Freemium. Automation needs designers, and automation actually frees designers to do a lot of other things. And last quote from there, the more advanced the technology becomes, the more of all activity becomes mediated by the information tools. So this means that the power, the political power, the financial power, any power that designers have is actually growing a lot. And that's kind of like, that's what's kind of like is breaking up the kind of traditional consultancy model, right? So we look at the dictionary. So consultant is someone giving expert advice. So, I mean, everyone has an opinion, right? But you have to be able to somehow provide value from there as well. So if you look at the adoption curve, there's a lot of money to be made on the early majority, late majority, etc., etc. But it's all price driven. So it's kind of like it becomes very metric driven as well. It becomes lean, it becomes agile. But the real magic happens there in the beginning. So where we actually have to make value to make the people interested. And at the time, it's so easy to build something and figure out how it floats. So it's like, that's where the designers have to be. So in the end, it is a bright world for designers out there building stuff. There's examples like British Us2. It's a design firm. They're about, I think, 150. They've got 3 offices. Hello. They've got 3 offices. And they do design. But they also build games for passion. And they've built like, I don't know, 30, 40 titles on their own, just like on the side. And they had a huge, huge hit with Monument Valley. It sold about 2.4 million, brought in 6 million of revenue, had 10 million installs. But still, for them, it took 55 weeks to develop and design. And the cost for that was like $850,000 if you count the hours they put in. They have a really nice blog post about that, about the metrics of the game and the other stuff as well. But still, if you run successful business on the side, you can do that. Yves Behar's Fuse project is pretty interesting. They started from a get-go doing products for other people. I think I can't remember what was the thing that they did, firstly. They did it just for a normal consulting fee. And it actually sold a lot. And they were like, hold on, we made that thing. We got like 50K out of it. What's going on? So we have to change this. So they actually started partnering with their clients, and by partnering and forming joint ventures on their product. And Jawbone is that thing. Jawbone, as in the speakers, headsets, wristbands, etc., etc. And I think, as I saw a number somewhere that about 70–80% of their revenue comes from the products, even though it takes less than half of their time. We've experienced something. For the past half year, 6–8 months, we've kind of built a platform for tracking stuff. And we built an iOS app on the side for just like, kind of like as a showcase to see what it's all about. And it doesn't have a name yet, but it will be out before the summer, I hope. And this is the same thing. I haven't counted the numbers, how much it took, but it's taken probably, I would say, 6 to 7 man-months to do that, at least. And the trick to do that is, well, if you read the Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, which tells the story of Pixar, it has a really interesting bit about how Pixar and Disney, but Disney actually bought Pixar at some stage. And Catmull is actually leading both companies. But they were really super strict from the beginning that they don't share any resources. They only share the leadership. There's no animators, there's no developers moving around. It's just like there's a really, really sturdy concrete fence and this physical distance between them. And that's kind of like that's the key of making things work. You have to be tough on yourself. You have to kind of figure out that what is it that you're going to do, and then dedicate the effort and time and resources to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's going to basically end up as a side project which never, ever gets finished. So, I lied. Sorry about that. Consultancy is not dead. Consultancies are very much alive, but the forms consultancies, design firms have to take changes. The firms, the makers have to be adaptive. You have to adapt to change. For larger players like finance institutions, corporations, different measures have to be taken. So there's a huge opportunity to kind of like actually kickstarting internal startups innovation. That all needs designers from the outside, because the people actually doing the product work there are tied in the product work that's going to be released pretty soon. So someone kind of like has to take the bird's eye view, and that's an opportunity. Kind of like, and there's new kind of opportunities emerging there. So, I mean, a lot of the things the science fiction predicted have come to us. They're almost every day. This on the left-hand side is Sid Mead's sketch for a car on Blade Runner, and the other one is Tesla from a couple of years back. So the flying car from Blade Runner is here. It doesn't fly, but it's got a big-ass battery. So it's pretty cool. And that kind of like presents opportunities to figure out what's the material of interaction in a new environment, such as a car. What is the design language of a screen that's not rectangle, that's meant to be touched in a certain situations and are meant to be very visible in others? And how does that combine with other physical controls you have? So these are hard problems, they're real problems. And this is a quote from Timo Arnold. So Nest wants an UI. So consumer products will have user interface for a long time. Even though computers are disappearing, a lot of the stuff goes behind the scenes with algorithms and whatnot. But user interfaces, services, they won't go anywhere. But they're actually, on the contrary, their significance grows because they have to be really well done in order to succeed. Consumers, people have no time for bad design anymore. And everything around us is a computer anyway. So that means that there are services, software, hardware everywhere around us. And the approach we have to take is a bit different. We have to adapt. So instead of like trying to build a whole cake, try to figure out what's the most meaningful part in the beginning. So, and then take it from there. So if you want to build a car, start from like nice little cart instead of like getting a pair of wheels and axle. And aim for value, not for novelty. Middle layer, as in any economy right now, the middle layer is going away. So there's less and less account managers, there's less and less project managers who provide very little value to the actual work. The silos competition has to go. We need more and more collaboration between companies, between people, between corporations even. So, and we have to really, really solve the problem of doing mediocre stuff in the landfill. Artifacts, they wrote a really nice post about the role of design consultancy. And they're really nice kind of like phrasing there. So for any non-massively scaling enterprise, you pretty much have two strategies. It's either two strategies for exit. So it's either death or quitting. And so that means that you have to be in it for the love of sport, and not for the profits. Because the internet basically is a gigantic multiplier to everything, the good and bad stuff. So there's more and more real problems, more and more urgent stuff to solve. And I mean, if you look at the connected products IoT right now, 99% of the stuff basically complicates people's lives by adding more steps in the mundane that they have. I mean, people are like water. So instead of doing an app to put on every single lamp individually, figure out to actually hook up the light switch they have in their houses already. People go whichever route is the easiest. So we, as designers, we try to complement the existing already and innovate through that. So it's much more subtle, much more difficult, but it's much more fruitful in the end as well. In Japan, there's the idea of kintsukuroi, which means golden repair. They repair pottery with gold and silver, and to actually embrace the brokenness. And the whole intention there is actually to make the kind of like the broken thing so much nicer, so much better than it was to begin with. There's something really, really nice about that. So I'm going to leave you with the thing about kind of short clip from a real world. So because there's so much stuff out there we can kind of learn from, we can build upon. There's so much talent and craftsmanship, mastery there. Craftsmanship has a place, be it digital, be it physical. It's actually sexy as hell. And I mean, culture rules, like many people have talked already, culture rules over cold metric management any day. So here's a short clip from Finnish company Iittala. They make, among other things, they make glass products. And that's something really, really, really nice about this, how they approach that.
Je pense que le verre, c'est une matière extrêmement forte, très intense, parce qu'elle est là depuis toujours.
J'ai toujours eu en tête ce morceau de verre, que ça emprisonne la lumière et que ça transmette une couleur dans l'environnement domestique. La première fois qu'on a été invité chez Iittala, c'était il y a presque 15 ans aujourd'hui. Et fait sur une plateforme, qui est une plateforme un peu comme une scène de théâtre, dans un sens. Il y a toute une organisation très chorégraphiée, avec des gestes très précis, puisque cette matière en fusion est extrêmement dangereuse. Et il y a toute une logique des corps et des gestes qui fabriquaient nos vases, quoi, comme dans une représentation théâtrale. Et donc, il y avait quelque chose de très touchant dans le fait de voir se réaliser nos pièces là, dans cet endroit un peu mythique, disons.
Le verre, c'est une matière qui aime la rondeur, qui aime les courbes, qui aime couler un petit peu comme le miel. C'est pas une matière qui aime être tirée vers une forme de géométrie précise.
Vaikka tuote näyttää yksinkertaiselta, niin...
But there's a challenge. Try to connect that, make that work with the internet. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You mentioned all these proprietary chargers and how there was this phase where we had one charger per device. Remember when I got my first Pebble Watch straight out of Kickstarter? Yeah. I had it for about 4 weeks before someone broke into my apartment and stole all kinds of really out of crap, basically because they were interrupted by the neighbors. The one thing they did steal was the Pebble, but not the charger. And to this day, I'm very delighted that these idiots will never be able to at least charge the watch they stole from me. So
yeah, I lost my Durabone, the wristband. It fell off my wrist for like a year and a half ago. Well, good luck with that.
Just very briefly, you mentioned that designers have now earned the seat at the boardroom. Quick question, do the boardrooms know that yet?
Some do, some don't. At least a lot of the boardrooms, they are aware of the need. And it's kind of like, I would say they know, but it's up to designers as well to communicate that. So you can always blame the client of not getting your stuff, but that means that you're just a shit salesperson, really. So you have to be able to articulate what you do, the right people, right places. But when you get there, it can be amazing. Because there's usually there's the middle layer that's kind of like that's blocking all the good stuff out. And the guys at the top might be actually fairly open to a lot of stuff.
And just one last question, because there's both some large companies here that work with small independent design agencies for their product design, and also a bunch of independent design stores that work increasingly also with connected products. And as you know yourself, oftentimes that is not the easiest cooperation, because most of the time you cannot talk about the work you do and all that. Do you have some survival tips, some guidelines, just some insights for these independent design stores, how to make that work?
Negotiate harder. I mean, we've got the same problem, obviously. It's a tough thing to do something that might come out in 2 years. So, I don't know, we started to do something on the side. Because it's kind of like, if you want to understand an idea or a business area, you actually gain a lot of pretty good knowledge throughout the process of client work, which you can then use in other means as well. So do self-initiated stuff, blog about it, do really quick point of views, that kind of stuff. That can be really fruitful. For example, if you look at what us2 is doing, apart from the games, they blog about car UIs and things like that. So just little things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.